500 years ago, Machiavelli watched the kindest men in Florence get destroyed, not by their enemies, by their own kindness. He watched them say yes when every instinct screamed no. He watched them shrink themselves to fit other people's comfort. He watched them give and give and give until there was nothing left to give, and the people they gave to simply found someone else to take from. And he wrote something that the kindest people in your life will never tell you, because they are too kind to say it. Men take from those who give freely and respect only those who know when to stop. This video will destroy the people-pleaser inside you, not hurt it, not challenge it, not give it something to think about. Destroy it, because Machiavelli saw 500 years ago what you are living through right now, and he left the cure in the most brutal, honest words ever written about human nature. Stay until the end, because the last section is the one that changes everything. Let me ask you something nobody has ever asked you directly. When was the last time you said yes and meant no? Not last year, not last month, today, this morning, an hour ago, 10 minutes ago. When was the last time someone asked something of you, and every part of you wanted to say, no, not now, I can't, I don't want to, but instead you smiled and said, of course, no problem, I've got you. And then you went home carrying the weight of something you never wanted to carry, while the person who asked went home thinking, good, that worked. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because Machiavelli noticed something about that moment that most people miss completely. He wrote, the man who cannot say no has not built a life, he has built a service for other people's lives. That is not harsh. That is the most precise description of what people-pleasing actually is. You are not being kind. You are running a service, and like every service, it has no value unless the customer keeps coming back. And they will keep coming back, as long as the service is free. Let me tell you how it started. Because it didn't start with weakness. It started with love. When you were young, you learned something that felt like wisdom at the time. You learned that when you made people happy, they stayed. When you gave, they smiled. When you agreed, there was peace. When you said yes, you were needed, and being needed felt like being loved. So you kept doing it. You kept saying yes when you meant no. You kept making yourself smaller so others could feel bigger. You kept swallowing your needs so no one would be uncomfortable. And it worked, for a while. Because the people around you were comfortable, and comfortable people are calm people, and calm people don't leave. So you thought, this is how you keep people. This is how you stay safe. This is how you are loved. Machiavelli would have looked at you with the cold clarity that made him the most feared political thinker in history and said, you are not keeping people, you are renting them, and the rent is your self-respect. Here is what nobody tells you about people-pleasing. It destroys the very thing it was designed to protect. The relationships you were trying to hold together by never saying no are the relationships most damaged by your yes. Here is why. When you never say no, the people closest to you never learn where you end and where they begin. They never learn your limits because you have shown them you have none. They never learn your needs because you have trained them to believe you have none. And they never learn to respect you because you have never shown them what there is to respect. Machiavelli was precise about this. He wrote, The prince who gives without limit teaches those around him that he has no limits, and men who believe there are no limits will always test where the limit is. They will test it by taking more and more and more until the day you break and they look at you with genuine confusion and say, "But you never said anything," and they are right, you didn't. Because saying something felt dangerous, saying something felt like rejection, saying something felt like the relationship would fall apart. But here is the darkest truth Machiavelli ever wrote about human nature, the relationship that can only survive your total self-erasure, was never a relationship at all. I want to talk to you about the anger you don't talk about, the anger you don't show, the anger you have been carrying for so long that it has become part of your personality, and you call it something else. You call it being tired, you call it being sensitive, you call it overthinking, you call it anxiety, but underneath all of it, underneath the exhaustion, the people-pleasing smile, the constant accommodation, there is anger. Clean, righteous, completely justified anger at people who keep asking, at yourself for keeping giving, at the situation you created that you don't know how to uncreate. Machiavelli named this anger. He called it the cost of the ungiven no. Every yes you said when you meant no cost something, and the interest accumulated, and now the debt is anger. Not at them, at yourself, for abandoning yourself, one small yes at a time, for so long that you barely remember who you were before the service started. Here is what Machiavelli would tell you to do, not gently. Machiavelli was never gentle. He would tell you, the first act of power is the first no you have been postponing. Not a speech, not a confrontation, not an announcement, just one no, delivered calmly, without explanation, without apology, without the performance of guilt you have been trained to provide. Just no, I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. And then silence. No filling the silence with justification, no reaching for the relationship you're afraid will break, just the no, and then the silence. And here is what Machiavelli observed happens next. One of two things. The person respects the no, and the relationship becomes more honest, or the person cannot accept the no and reveals in that moment that what they wanted was never a relationship, it was a service. And services, Machiavelli said, should be paid for, not given freely to people who never asked if the giving was costing the giver everything. I want to tell you something that Machiavelli wrote in the final pages of The Prince that most people never reach, because they stop reading when the political philosophy gets uncomfortable. He wrote, "The man who learns to preserve himself preserves everything. The man who gives himself away has nothing left to give." You have been giving yourself away, not all at once, never all at once. A little bit here, a small yes there, a swallowed no in that meeting, a boundary uncrossed in that relationship, a need unspoken in that conversation. Little by little, in amounts so small you barely noticed each one, you gave yourself away. And now you stand in the middle of a life that looks like yours from the outside, but doesn't feel like yours from the inside, because it was built for everyone else's comfort. And yours, somewhere along the way, stopped mattering, not to them, to you. You stopped mattering to yourself. And that is the real wound that people-pleasing creates. Not the exhaustion, not the resentment, not the anger. The quiet belief that your needs are less important than the comfort of the people around you. That belief is the people pleaser, not the behavior, the belief. And that belief must be destroyed, not managed, not worked on, not addressed in therapy over the next 3 years. Destroyed. Here is how. Machiavelli had 5 rules for recovering power from people-pleasing, not 5 suggestions, 5 rules. Rule 1, stop explaining your no. The moment you explain, you invite negotiation. The moment you invite negotiation, you have already said yes to the process of being talked out of your no. A no is a complete sentence. It requires no footnotes, no apology, no softening, just no. Rule 2. Stop prioritizing their discomfort over your exhaustion. Their discomfort with your no is temporary. Your exhaustion from the yes is cumulative, and cumulative exhaustion eventually becomes collapse. Choose their temporary discomfort every time. Rule 3. Remove the guilt. Guilt is the people-pleaser's primary operating system. They installed it when you were young, without asking permission. Every time you feel guilty for saying no, ask one question: did I do something wrong? Not, is someone unhappy? Did I do something wrong? If the answer is no, the guilt is not yours. It is theirs, and they handed it to you because you always accepted it. Stop accepting it. Rule 4. Let relationships break that need your selflessness to survive. This is the hardest rule, because the relationships most likely to break when you start saying no are the relationships that have been feeding on your yes the longest. And those relationships feel the most important, the most irreplaceable, the most worth protecting. But Machiavelli was clear. The relationship that requires your self-destruction to survive was destroying you long before it broke. Let it break, quietly, without drama, without accusation. Just let it be what it actually was, rather than what you needed it to be. Rule 5. Build the life that makes saying no easy. The reason saying no is so hard is that the people-pleaser has built a life in which other people's approval is the primary currency. When approval is currency, saying no is financial ruin. Build a life in which your own respect is the primary currency. Build skills. Build independence. Build a relationship with yourself so solid that the disapproval of people who needed you to say yes simply doesn't touch you. I want to end with something Machiavelli wrote that I have never heard quoted correctly. Most people quote him as the man who said, "It is better to be feared than loved." But the sentence he wrote before that, the one nobody quotes, was this: "A man is loved for what he gives. A man is respected for what he protects. And the man who can protect nothing because he has given everything is neither loved nor respected. He is simply used." You were not put on this earth to be used. You were put here with needs and preferences and limits and a self. That deserves the same protection you have spent your entire life giving to everyone else. Machiavelli's darkest warning was not about power, it was about this, about the quiet violence of giving yourself away so slowly, so kindly, so completely, that by the time you realize what happened, there is almost nothing left. Almost, because you are still here, and that means there is still something left to protect. Start now, not tomorrow. Not when the timing is better, not when the people around you are ready for the new version of you. Now, with the next yes that should be a no, say no, calmly, quietly, without apology, and feel, for the first time, what it is like to choose yourself. Machiavelli did not write The Prince for politicians. He wrote it for anyone who had forgotten that they were worth protecting. You are worth protecting. Start today.